Hello and welcome to Unmasking Mum, the podcast. This is our first official podcast. My name is Ana Bonasera and I discovered I had ADHD about 4 years ago. I have wanted to do a podcast for a number of years, and it's been one of those ADHD things where I have started it and not finished it, not seen it through to the end. And this was the year that I was determined to get a podcast out into the world. It was a different topic. Okay. And I know this seems like very ADHD of switching, but I want to explain how we got here. Okay. So I wanted to do a podcast called Send Help and a Paycheck, and it's all about parent carers and having a business or being self-employed. And I recorded 5 episodes over a period of time. It took me a long time to get the guest speakers and get together, and somehow 4 of those episodes got deleted and you have 1 left. And I have just not been able to pick it back up again and do it. And then I had this idea of really wanting to do an ADHD podcast, especially about my unmasking journey as a mum, late diagnosed ADHD. And I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't, because I've promised I was going to do this other one. And I just couldn't get started with it. I couldn't get the mojo. So I decided to stop caring what other people might think about me being flaky or whatever people want to think. Stop calling myself that and just go with what I'm feeling and what I'm feeling passionate about, which is maybe a valuable lesson in learning about your ADHD. So who am I? If you don't know me, like I said, my name is Ana Bonasera and I am a mum to 5 children. 4 of those who are boys who are all on the ADHD pathway. My twins were diagnosed as autistic when they were younger, also global development delay, and both were nonverbal at 3. They're now 11. One has a severe learning disability, one has a moderate learning disability, and one is still minimally speaking. They are on the ADHD pathway under learning disability CAMS, which is different. We're under many different pathways of things. My eldest is 13, and it was actually him being flagged as ADHD that made me realise, hang on, me and him are the same person. We both are ADHD, aren't we? Yeah, we are. And then my 7-year-old, my 4th child, is also under CAMS and various different things, and we are on the right to choose pathway. Then I have a daughter who is 2. She is an absolute whirlwind, and you guessed it, she is also, at this point I feel like we just need a family account. That's the joke I always say. Just give us a family account so we can just be in one place rather than be under different services and having to deal with all those emails, which overwhelms my brain, and appointments. But no, it can't be that simple, of course. She is very recently gone through her 2-year check and met the criteria for her to have an assessment for, well, we put towards the paediatrician, and we'll see what they say. Her people get rejected from that, so I am just going with the flow at the moment. Anyway, it took my 4 boys being flagged for ADHD and being put forward for ADHD assessments for me to actually think, hang on, I need to look at myself. I'd seen a lot of TikToks back in 2020 I came quite late into the day into TikTok, but I'd seen a lot of them about, how ADHD presents in women. And I'd started to question, is that me? Is that not me? That sounds like me. And wondering and doing lots of research, spending lots of time looking at different things. Is that me, or are they just personality traits that are just make me a bad person? Like the fact that I am always late and I can never get anywhere on time. The fact that I miss appointments and I struggle to cope with the amount of emails that school send. The fact that I turn up to school some days and it's non-school uniform day and I haven't realised how I cannot keep on top of my bloody housework. I struggle to do washing. Why am I leaving washing in the washing machine for days upon end and having to rewash it? Why can't I do this? Why can't I just be like all the other mums? That is how my brain processes. And there are lots of people who are like, everybody struggles with this, blah, blah, blah. But it's not necessarily that people don't struggle with those things. They are things, losing your keys, for example, losing your phone. they are something that everyone does every now and again. And neurotypical people do it more when their brains are stressed. But neurodivergent people, ADHD, and we're going to be talking about in particular, struggle with it like every day. Like it's an everyday thing. It's not just when we're stressed or ill or physically like aching, which can put your brain off into like the functions of the brain, messes them up and makes you dysfunctional. That is just how we are all of the time. So I started seeing these TikToks and thinking, okay, this is how ADHD shows up in women. And I remember saying to my dad, who has always been the most supportive person in my life. Unfortunately, he isn't here anymore, which is really, really hard for me. And was a big shock. But I remember saying to him when I was seeing these, I was like, I think I have ADHD. And he was like, he laughed at me. And I wish he was alive now because we'd have such amazing conversations about it. And he is so ADHD, it's unreal. I don't know why we never saw it. Crazy. So yeah, I was talking to him about it, and he didn't do TikTok, so he hadn't seen any of the things that were going around at the time. And I kind of brushed it to the side, and I kept kind of it in the back of my mind, and I talk about it with some of my friends who also thought they were ADHD, and we kind of go back and forth, and we did some little quizzes online to see if we marked highly or stuff, but I wasn't really taking it like massively seriously. And then Nathaniel, my eldest, who's now 13, this was like 3 years ago. He was going through the CAMS process for getting help for his mental health, and they did like a little pre-assessment quizzy thing. It was like, yeah, he scores highly for autism, which I thought I could see because I knew lots about autism because we'd been going through it with the twins for a long time. It had been part of our life, so we knew lots about it. Scores highly for anxiety, and he also scores highly for ADHD. And I was like, what? I was really confused. And I just, it didn't make sense for me. It just didn't make any sense. And I was like, I don't see that. And then I started learning about ADHD and the 3 different types. And what I realised is that how ADHD shows up in women, in quotation marks, was how it was showing up in my son. But because I'd been watching the TikToks of them saying how ADHD shows up in women, I hadn't considered the fact that it could then also be a boy thing. And that's why I hate the TikToks who are like specifically about women, because it stopped me from realizing that it was in Nathaniel. And I kind of always saw ADHD as this not as serious condition. I don't like the word condition, but I'm going to use it for now. But just know I don't agree with the word condition. Brain type, we could say. It wasn't taken as seriously. It was just one of those things. I literally remember not judging someone, but being like, when her mum was like, oh, my child's got ADHD, I was like, yeah, okay. How dumb was I? And I didn't realize how debilitating having ADHD has been for me over my life and being undiagnosed. We need to come back to that. I need to try and remember that. I need to have a notebook here to write the points I need to go back to. Anyway, back to the story if I can remember it. So after that, CAMS had said Nathaniel scores highly for ADHD, we then were put on the waiting list for, which I almost missed because I hadn't changed our home address. I did just have a baby at this point as well, I'd like to point out. So it was ADHD combined with postpartum. Anyway, he has been on the waiting list for 3.5 years for an autism and ADHD assessment, and I'm going down the Right to Choose pathway. I'm going to do a whole separate podcast about Right to Choose pathway. Make mental note of that. Maybe you can remind me if I come out with the podcast and there's not a Right to Choose one, then you have the right to give me a. Then it was Spencer's turn, who's now 7, and when he was in preschool, there were some behaviours flagged that preschool kind of thought, like I was having this conversation with them the other day because now Mila's at the same preschool, and I wish they had just gone to me, hello, can't you see? He's just like the others, like, let's get the ball rolling, let's get it done. But because they have to be careful about what they can legally can and can't say, obviously they're not allowed to diagnose, but we questioned it. Me and my husband, we talked about it to our parents, and they were all like, no, it's just learned behaviour, like there's nothing wrong in quotation marks with Spencer. It's just like normal for children to struggle like that. And we didn't we didn't take it seriously. And at that point, my dad was the only one who kind of did step back and be like, look, we only see the good parts of him. You see him all the time. You know what it's like. Listen to your gut. And we didn't go through with it. We just thought he's coping at the minute, so we'll just continue and see how he gets to when he's in school. When he was in school at the first parents' evening, I'd said, like, preschool had raised these concerns. Do you share them? And no, they didn't share them at all. Then it got to the April, and he was about to turn 5 in the end of June, and I was heavily pregnant with Mila. And then school, actually, I think he's got ADHD. And I just sobbed after that. I was like I felt like I was hit by a brick wall, because I was like, why? Like, why wouldn't you have told me this? Why couldn't you have told me this sooner? Because he is now almost 5. I'm heavily pregnant, and am I really going to try and rush him through the pediatric route to then maybe get knocked back because they're going to be like, no, he's too close to 5? Or am I going to wait on the CAMHS waiting list? Now, as he wasn't struggling at that time, we decided to just wait until Mila was born and then decide what we were going to do and see what was going to happen. He started to decline in his mental health, and that was when I was like, school has said ADHD, so I don't know how to help him. I need to learn more about ADHD. And at that point then, I was so focused on trying to get my kids the help. I felt like I needed to put them first before I sought my own diagnosis and sought my own needs, which I look back and think, that's wrong. You don't need to do that, because when you help yourself, you are helping your kids, aren't you? So I decided then to go through, and I then knew someone, a lady called Kim Rain, who was starting to do some training, which is now called the Neurodiversity Training Academy. I did my first qualification with them as an ADHD practitioner. I wanted to learn as much as I could about ADHD to help my kids more than anything else. And like I said, I didn't know the impact that ADHD truly has on you and has had on me throughout my whole life. So then after that, Spencer's mental health really declined and we had a really hard time. I'm not going to go into full details of that because that's not the point of this podcast, but I wanted to say how we got here. So I was doing my ADHD qualification at that time. 5 kids. Mila was like 6 months and Spencer was really struggling. But I did get really behind at one point because it's 3 hours a week. It's a lot to do. I still had Mila at home with me, so I was having to do it around her. I was doing a lot of it on replay and catch-ups. And that can be hard when you've got ADHD, when you don't have accountability of doing it live, watching the replay and doing the work. It was also around Christmas time too, when I had to get all the assessments in and stuff. But I did it. I passed. Then Kim announced that she was doing a coaching qualification, and I qualified in the February time, and then I started the new qualification in October for ADHD coaching foundations, and then I did my ADHD coaching advanced from the January. By the summer holidays, I have then completed all my qualifications, and although you could probably technically say I'm an expert, I just don't like using the word expert because there is new stuff evolving all the time about ADHD. And every ADHD person is very different as well. So I know a lot of things, but there's still lots that I could learn. That has kind of brought us up to where we are. In terms of my own diagnosis, I obviously had gone through all this research and then learnt all this stuff, and I saw other people on the course going through their right to choose pathways and private diagnoses, and I decided that once I had done Spencer's referral and Nathaniel's referrals all in, that I was then going to do my own. I put myself forward for an assessment in January 2024, and in February 2025 I had my assessment and I'll talk more about the right to choose pathway. Like I said, I'm going to do another podcast, and it was very validating to hear from someone else and to be able to, like, especially because I'm working in the ADHD world, I feel like having the official diagnosis and the experience of going through the process is really important to be able to help clients who are going through it and just have that knowledge. of how it all works. A lot of people say that after you're diagnosed, you kind of go through this grief process of what could life have been like if I had known sooner. And I don't think I felt it that hard and that deep. Like, it really knocks some people, which is rightly so. And although I definitely think, God, my life could have been so different if I had known, and I wish I did, don't get me wrong, it hasn't left me like upset. One thing that did really upset me was on this journey of unmasking and looking after myself, going through coaching, going through therapy, and really getting to understand my ADHD brain. I got to a place where I could declutter my house because I'm a bit of a hoarder. I'm one of those ADHDers. And as I was decluttering, I was going through boxes in my under the stairs cupboard. And I was sat literally at the bottom of the under the stairs cupboard. I'd emptied all the shit out and put it into the living room. And I was just going through boxes upon boxes, books of stationery, notebooks that literally only had like one or two things in, that were ideas, that were businesses, that were stories, that were poems, all of this creativity that I had started and not finished. And that did make me sad. And I think that's been one of the things that has most affected my course of life, is all the $1 million ideas that are sat in those workbooks, in those notebooks, that I haven't seen through to the end. And I think that's one of the really harsh realities of ADHD is we are such creative people. We are such passionate people with purpose, but we don't have the executive functioning skills to finish those projects, and it's really sad. It's something I now recognize, and I'm now working with to try and combat that, to try and find processes and strategies that mean I do see my projects through to the end. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and I think that is all about life, isn't it? Trial and error. So that is just the beginning of this story, of this podcast. And what you have got to come is talking more about what I have seen in my own journey of getting to realizing I have ADHD, the challenges I've had, the challenges I've had since, and the juggle of being an ADHD person, an ADHDer, and a mum of 5 children who also have needs, and the clash that brings. I hope you have enjoyed this first episode. I don't want to keep them too long, so I'm gonna stop it here and go on to the next one. So thank you so much for being here so far. This is not a polished podcast, and this is something I'm trying to work on, is because I kept saying I'm not going to do this podcast, I'm not going to record it until like my hair is like all curled and I got a full face of makeup and I've like not got a cold and I've got everything ready, prepared, I've got like a opening line, and I don't have all those things. And I think that is what stops me from getting to the end of this. So I hope you're listening to this, and I hope I have made it. I hope I've hit publish and we've launched the podcast, and I hope that it helps you feel seen and heard and it resonates with you. And if you can, please do leave a review. I've heard that helps. I don't know, because I'm new to this journey. If you want to leave a review and say how much you love this podcast, because hopefully you do, that would be amazing. And please share it on your socials or with your friend as well. And I'll be back next time for another episode of Unmasking Mum, the podcast with Ana Bonasera. I'll see you soon.